Hi,
Okay.
can everybody hear me?
Yes, just about.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're really excited to have this webinar today in partnership with Esri UK. Thank you so much, Esri UK, to host us today. I am Olivia Powell, and I will guide you through a short introduction. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for being part of this webinar, and our amazing panelists who have taken the time to share their time with us today. I will take off my video because I think it doesn't help. They will introduce themselves in a minute. First of all, I'd like to go through some housekeeping. So the webinar is recorded, and it will be shared after, shortly after, on social media and on our user channels. We wanted to have an interactive session, so please use to ask questions, and we've got a hashtag WIG2020. I'm Olivia Powell, and I've got a degree in geography. I love GIS. I am also a leader of Women in Geospatial, and I have made a few changes in my career, and this can help for those who are in between jobs or wanting to change, to jump and have a bit of advice. I would like to present you Women in Geospatial. It's an organization or a network aiming to drive gender equality in the geospatial community. And we're trying to kind of build a community to connect people and empower women to become strong leaders and change makers. We're a global organization, and we're free. We build a community of support. We create events and organize events like today. And we have a career mentorship program, and we also advocate for gender equality, including having a speakers database for women, so we can increase the number of women in conferences. So if you'd like to have a look and join us, you can go to our website, womeningeospatial.org, or follow us on social media on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we'll welcome you. I will now pass on to Sarah to be the moderator and introduce herself, and then the panelists as well. Enjoy the discussion.
Thanks, Olive. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah St. Ruth, and I'm going to be moderating our panel today. So a little bit about myself. I came into geospatial in a very typical fashion. So I pursued a love of maps and completed a geography degree. Lucky enough, my first job in tech was with Esri UK. So on completing the graduate scheme, where I rotated through the technical departments at Esri UK, I became a product manager. And I've been doing this role now for a little over 5 years. So it primarily focuses on managing web applications, and every now and again I get to take a new product to market. So I love my job. It perfectly blends technical with customer engagement, but I am now at a stage in my career where I'm looking at how I can further develop. So hence I'm really excited to hear from each one of the women on the panel today, to hear about their experiences and how they've navigated and developed their careers. So without any further ado, let's get to know our panelists. So Sarah, would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Sarah Lewin from Esri UK as well. I've been with the company close to 20 years now, aside from a few years working at Esri Australia. And my current role is that of Head of Technical Enablement, bit of a mouthful. That's a group of 3 smaller teams which specialise in the application of the ArcGIS platform. And we use that to support the sales team, drive marketing campaigns, but also influence the ongoing development of the technology. I myself, I've got a pretty technical background, so I started out in technical support at Esri UK. I then moved into professional services as a developer and spent a lot of time also in the pre-sales team. In the last 10 years, I've moved mainly into management, but still very much within the technical side of the business. And certainly through the early part of my career, I became very much accustomed to being the only woman in the room. But it's been really encouraging to watch that change over the years. And I'm very proud to say that my current team is very close now to a 50-50 male-female split.
Amazing. Thanks, Sarah. Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi. Well, I laughingly described myself as a neo-geographer or born again. I ran away from geography screaming at the age of 13. I hated it. I started off by moving to a boys' school, doing all sciences. Then I went into manufacturing, and then into IT. And just through a friend, really, I kind of said I'd help him out for a bit with this thing called Street Gazetteers, which was new at the time. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And suddenly geography was very, very different to what it had been at school. And my first geography project was a £72 million land stabilisation project where a big chunk of Bath was collapsing. And yeah, completely got the bug from there. And I went from the consultancy to in-house at Swindon. And within 2 years, I was the National Street Gazetteers chair, because I'd done the gazetteers at so many different authorities. And I also got involved a lot with the AGI and the Inspire when all that was new and coming on. So very much on the technical and IT side of GIS. And but unfortunately, I still can't remember which is east or west.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. So Helen, would you like to go next? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Sarah. My name's Helen Cooper. Thank you for inviting me to join you today. I'm a geography graduate and have been a map enthusiast for about as long as I can remember. 15 years ago, I managed to land my dream job being GIS manager at LUC, which is an environmental consultancy. And after a very enjoyable 10 years there, I decided to do what I felt was very brave at the time, take the plunge and set up my own company, Map It Out. I'm really fortunate enough to work with clients across a really diverse range of sectors. So it includes sports development, landscape architects and national utilities. I really love my work and I love being my own boss. One day I might be calculating a viewshed for a new development, another day developing an Esri story map, and another day working with an illustrator to enhance a map. One of my favourite things is when a client has that light bulb moment and you see them realise the power of GIS, and it's really satisfying. I can't claim to have had an overarching career plan, but if my experience can contribute to the wider discussion on careers, then that makes me happy.
Thanks, Helen. So Shaz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Shaz. I'm the European Marketing Lead for Esri. I started my career studying IT. It was IT for business. I think I was one of 3 girls on the whole course, and I ended up working in an IT role at HP. Since then, I've been working at various tech companies. I've been to Cognos, IBM, a tax calc company as well. And then, yeah, went off to Esri UK and now at Esri. So I've had a real change in career from IT to marketing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's where I am now. Sorry, I heard a bit of it. I didn't know if someone was asking me something or...
Oh, no worries, Shaz. Well, that was great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we're just going to dive straight into it. So let's start quite broad for the first question. You know, I think you guys have all been in the industry for a couple of years, and even in my 7 years, I've noticed there's been quite a shift, a cultural shift, and perceptions have changed. It's not necessarily all men that go into tech now. We're seeing a variety coming through in our tech pipeline. But, you know, in the last 10 years, we're seeing that the ratio of men to women in technology is staying about the same. So there's campaigns such as the WISE campaign, which have highlighted this. So starting there, what do you think are the most significant challenges for women to progress their careers? Kristen, would you like to?
I think one of the key issues is we've got a dual whammy, at least. And that is that we tend to be very technical, and those sorts of people don't tend to like standing up too much. They tend to like to just get on with the actual nuts and bolts of the job. And as well, being female, again, you're not so good at pushing yourself forwards. And those two together are a bit of a double whammy. And I think it's very important to remember that when you see people standing up, presenting like politicians, chief executives, those people are people whose whole role is to stand up and present. They expect them to be really good at it. I think you have to remember that to be a GI manager, people just expect you to be a good technical manager, not this wonderful charismatic orator. Don't overthink it and put barriers in your way that don't need to be there.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. Lots of points there that hopefully we can explore as we're going through this. You know, part of that was, you know, potentially the way you were saying that, I always saw that there's maybe women aren't as proactive in gaining leadership roles, and you know, do you think that might be something to do with role models? Sarah, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree what you're saying there, Kristen, and yeah, I mean, leads quite nicely onto one of the things which I feel is a challenge. It was definitely a challenge for me, and I still think it is a challenge now, is the lack of female role models within the industry. And that's particularly evident, I think, in the senior positions. I think it's, you know, changed when it comes to, you know, starting out the sort of first 5-10 years of your career. But I, in particular, found it quite hard to visualize my route through the business and find a position to aim for. That was particularly the case when I had children, and then trying to return to a career. I mean, I found it quite tiring being one of the first people to do that, one of the first people to have to, you know, deal with all of these challenges I faced. You know, how would we do this? What does that mean? Can I go part-time? How does that impact my role? I think, you know, the company and my company were very supportive about it, but it's a challenging time, and it's quite hard when you come back. The other thing that I, you know, was thinking about in terms of challenges is, you know, you've got the role model thing, and the other really important area when you are trying to progress your career is about building that network around you. And I think networking can be particularly tough when you're the only woman in the room, and you want to progress, and, you know, it's really important to build that network, but it's hard to make that happen. And in particular, I found that I was a younger woman a lot of the time in a sea of older men, and it takes quite a lot of confidence to go out and start that conversation. And I also think it takes quite a lot of confidence on the part of the men in that room, you know, walking over to the only younger female in the room. That's quite intimidating for them. It's quite intimidating for me, and I just think it creates an unproductive networking environment.
That's really interesting, especially contrasting both perspectives there, like the fact that it could be difficult for either party. I think it's really, really interesting. So Sarah, you touched on childcare. I'm just wondering, you know, Helen, was childcare at any time, do you think that is a particular factor that can affect the women?
Yeah, I believe so, and I agree totally with what both Kristen and Sarah have just said. It just, from perceptions within both our own industry and the wider society, I feel that things are generally pretty equal until that point where some women start having children, and at that point it's really difficult for the women that have had children to maintain their careers at the same level as people that haven't. And I think until we achieve proper equality in childcare, I think that will continue to be a barrier for women achieving more senior positions in the companies that they work for.
Absolutely, that's really interesting, especially in, like, if we're not really going to concentrate on COVID here, but, you know, when it has been, you know, a lot more child time, I guess, than what you would have had previously. So really interesting points about that, making it equal share. Shaz, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, for me, I think obviously children was a big factor for me as well. But my, I think, biggest issue was that I actually wanted to breastfeed. So finding a part-time job where I could get to work and back quite quickly was quite hard. And I think I had this this sort of misconception that like I needed a female manager who'd understand my position and understand like, you know, that I had children. But I think throughout my career, I've realized that there are also women that don't have children, and it's just as easy, if not, to find a man who's a father who can understand your position and how important it is with childcare. So, I mean, some of my best managers were actually men who had children and could understand what was important to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That like empathy, it doesn't have to come from the same gender. Like it can come from anywhere to help support you. So yeah, really, really interesting. So that was like a quick round of a couple of the challenges that we face in progressing a career. But you know, like I would really want to spend a second let's talking about like your experiences and how they've helped to shape your career progression. So you know, if we talk about a topic which gets spoken about off and on, it's very popular at the moment, actually, especially within technology, is around imposter syndrome. So feeling, you know, affected by the amount of responsibility you may have been given. You know, is this something that I'd really like to know if this is something that's affected the panel? So Sarah, is this something that has affected you before?
Yeah, totally. And you know, I still feel that all the time now, but I think one of the interesting things is that since I've moved into the management, and the more I manage and the more people I speak to and understand who sort of flow through my teams, the more you see that imposter syndrome is a factor for so many people regardless of gender. It's very easy to think that that's just something that sits with women, but actually I see it just as much in, you know, some of the men that work in my teams. I think for me, it's all about just learning to believe in yourself, and also, you know, trust the people around you that they're making the right decisions. They've put you in this job, you're capable of doing it. I do think one of the interesting things for me is that in any minority group, you might get the feeling that you don't fit in, and that, yeah, you're sort of an imposter in an environment that's just full of men. But I think you sort of need to turn that on its head and remember that, you know, diversity in a workforce and also just in the way you're thinking is a hugely positive thing, and your difference is the thing that makes you more valuable to the group, and it makes you stand out, and it makes your opinion probably even more important.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. It's interesting to say that everyone feels like that sometimes. Like it's not just something that affects some,
yeah, the confident people don't, but in my general experience, you know, I think we've done a lot of recruiting recently, and we've been thinking about how we present the job profiles because of how, you know, men might take something versus a woman takes something, and it's so true. You look at this expectation for a job. You know, if I actually looked at what is expected in my job, I don't necessarily feel like I could deliver on that, but yeah, I do it every single day. It's because it, you know, it sounds much more lofty, and, you know, it's that imposter syndrome kicking in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's really good. Kristen, is this something that you've experienced?
When I was 26, the guy that had just taken over the factory, the new managing director, walked into my office and said, "We've just made the old factory manager redundant. Congratulations, you're the boss." In that one sentence, I went from 3 people reporting to me to a shift staff of 120 and a 28 million turnover. Now, for 3 factories on 1 industrial estate. Not only that, but I had actually at some point been junior to some of the people that I was now in charge of. And it was so unusual in manufacturing to have a female boss that the workforce, most of whom were African immigrants on working visas, they didn't know how to cope either. Nothing in my upbringing had prepared me for people who would bow to me and call me Memsab. I felt totally alien, but I found my way through it. And I found the best way was humour. And I even found that with discipline, when you're 5'3" and 26, you can't shout at a guy when you're looking at their chest, because they're head and shoulders above you and twice your width in muscles. But if they've done something wrong and you call all the other guys to come over and laugh at how silly they've been, they don't do it again. Find your own way.
No, that's really interesting. Like, lean into your strengths to manage, those feelings of imposter syndrome. Really interesting. Great anecdote as well. So Helen, is this over to you? Is this something that you've been affected by?
Yeah, I think most people do get this at times in their career, particularly after a promotion or a progression. And I certainly felt it, probably particularly when I was first GIS manager at the Environmental Consultancy I last worked at. And I think my response at the time was to work as many hours as I physically could to make up for all of my inadequacies. And I think retrospectively, what I would tell my younger self was find a mentor and join a network. And I think those two things can be really powerful, because just talking those feelings through with somebody, you can realize that, well, they have put me in this job because I've got these strengths, and I might have these weaknesses, but you can work on those, or you can draw on the strengths of other people in your team. So I think to have a network and a mentor is a really strong thing that you can do if that's where you're at the moment.
Oh, fantastic advice there. So we've got mentoring, networks, lean into your strengths there as well, acknowledging you're not the only person being affected by it. So yeah, no, some really fantastic points. Something that was touched upon is this idea of being the only woman in the room. Like, Shaz, is this something that you've experienced before?
Yes, in my first job actually, which was straight out of university, because I did a degree in IT, there was a push for women to join IT and I ended up being the only woman on the whole floor, which was really scary at that age. I think I just didn't even know how to deal with it, to be honest. Like, not having a friend or a woman that you could talk to at, like, I don't know, even certain times of the month or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You're surrounded. And there were a lot of things like, like everyone was interested in cars and I just didn't have any interest in any of that kind of thing. It was really difficult, I think, to fit in. But I think one of the things that, maybe because I was a bit too young then to sort of like really have that much confidence in myself and my ability to kind of speak up, I was very nervous and quiet. And looking back now, I think I should have like maybe spoken up a little bit more, or like, like I could do the same job, but I didn't feel like I could, compared to everybody else. I didn't feel like I was technical enough, or, that if I said something that it wasn't taken in the same way as if a man had said it. So yeah, I think for me, I wish I just had more confidence, but it's something you learn, I guess, as you get older.
Yeah. Yeah, but like drawing on the points made earlier, having that faith in yourself, maybe using your network to get that confidence as well. Like, Shaz, it sounds like there wasn't a huge amount of people for you to speak to well.
No, not there, no.
So Kristen, like, like you said, you were in a totally male environment. So, how have you had it where, as you moved into GIS, potentially more women, like how did you help with encouraging them when they're the only women in the room?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, going to work for a local authority felt almost as alien as being in charge in the factory at first, because I'd been in an all-male environment since I was 16 and I wasn't used to communicating with women. But through simply the luck of the draw, because we would have temps and they'd be made permanent, I ended up with one female after another. And I've always very much valued a team of very different personalities, simply because they'll like the work I don't like doing and vice versa. So, and my main rule was, you do your legwork. I was never a manager that just took the glory work and let other people do their own data cleaning. or do my data cleaning for me. I apologise. So, for example, there was a lovely lady, Rosina, who was my right-hand man for well over a decade. And yeah, I was all big and loud and bluster, but she had a very quiet confidence, and she was great to go in on health and police matters and in with the schools, because she gave people this quiet confidence and they felt safe giving her data. And then there was another lady working for us who saw that things were going digital, so I managed to get the funding for her to start off with one of those IT for the Terrified courses, and encouraging those people to get on and stay, particularly in a local authority environment, which does, a lot of women will stay there because of the working conditions, because the sick pay, the flexible working. If you can help those women come on, then slowly the men left and the women took over. But I hadn't realised it. I hadn't stopped to think until the day we were given the go ahead to employ a new post straight off the bat. And I was walking along the corridor talking to my boss, and I just said, oh, I wonder if we'll get any female applicants. And she stopped and she looked at me and she said, I thought GIS was all female.
Wow.
It was just so bizarre. When I started at Swindon, we'd go to a regional meeting and we'd joke about doubling the number of women in the room, because we did, literally, one parcel, we'd double the number of women in the room. So value differences and understand your differences when you're talking to your manager. I always used to say that if you don't tell me what work you like doing best, someone else might have done that and they'll get those jobs.
Yeah, no, the really good points. I think, definitely the point of you empowering the other women on your team as well, to the point where, you had managers who didn't even think it was a male dominated profession. So I think, yeah, that's fantastic. So Sarah, I want to just, before we move on to the next question, just because you made the point earlier about, being the only woman in the room, is this something, as you have gained in seniority, is this something that you've been affected by?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always some good stories, aren't there? I had a classic one when I was sitting in a room. There was about 40 of us in there, and I didn't even notice that I was the only woman in the room, because it was part of the course, until the lady serving the tea came in, and it was like something from a comedy sketch, that it was just me and her, and it was just all so wrong, like something from the 1950s. But I think, I've got very much used to it, particularly in a more senior environment. And I think there's some strategies which I often use, things like finding myself an ally, someone that I'm comfortable with in that room, so that I've got, someone to sort of make that friendly glance to. And when you're having a breakout in the meeting, you've got someone to go to, just having that friendly face. It doesn't need to be a female, it can be a male, but someone you consider your ally in that room. The other thing I always find myself doing is, really pushing myself to speak up. Back, 3-4 years ago, I found myself constantly kicking myself when someone would say something and everyone else thinks it's a great idea, and I'm like, well, I thought that, but I'm just too intimidated to actually come out with that. So forcing yourself to come out with it and accepting that, when you watch a room, so many people put an opinion forward in a meeting, 3-4 times out of 10, not everyone agrees with it, but everyone just moves on, and it's very easy to focus on that one poor comment you made, rather than focusing on all the good contributions you made.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for that. So let's go on to our next question. So we kind of focus on challenges quite a lot in the first two questions, and some great advice about how to deal with those challenges, especially the ones you guys have experienced. So taking on that and looking at your experiences, and what helped you get to where you are today, what would you recommend to people who are looking to progress or change their career? So Sarah, is this something you want to have a little look at? Sorry. pick on you again, but
yeah, and I had to think about this, and I think the really significant thing for me, and it's been brought up a couple of times already, was just about understanding where your strengths are. I went on a management training course, and I do think it's one of the best things I ever did. And it was about focusing on who I was, what I was like, and where my strengths were, all to enable me to become a better manager because I understood myself better. But I just think knowing your strengths and playing to them is so important, because it's really hard to be happy when everything is really hard work. And when you're not playing to your strengths, things can become hard work. I don't think there's the perfect role out there which only touches on your strengths, but you know, there's always going to be things you struggle with, but try not to make them a dominant part of what you do. And I feel like the decisions I've made in my career have been about focusing on those things that I do well and evolving my role around the things that I'm really good in. And you know, some of the roles I've taken on have subsequently been taken on by someone else, and they've looked completely different. And that's because you know the role should evolve around the individual and you know what they want to focus on, because I think it makes for a much better and successful role.
yeah, no, really, really great point. So I definitely noticed that, just as a side note, with our graduate scheme, like every year, every time they come through, it evolves with each set of graduates based on their strengths, what skill sets they're bringing. So yeah, it's fantastic. Keeps it fresh as well. So okay, so we're gonna have some of the stuff we'll talk about is you know, is trusting yourself, trusting your own opinions. Is that something, Shaz, like you've experienced, like following your instincts in the career decisions that you've made?
Yeah, I think, do you know, it's really difficult when you get to that point where you have to like start speaking up and you've got an idea, like you said, Sarah, and you know, you kind of hold on to it because you think everyone's going to think it's a really bad idea, and then you say it and everyone's like, oh, we didn't think of that. And I think once you've had that experience once or twice, it's actually a lot easier to then like just say something. But yeah, definitely that was, I think, the hardest thing for me was learning how to speak up and to like you said, Sarah, finding that person in the room that I know if I say something stupid, they'll just back me up anyway. So I know that I can't really, like, I won't look totally, you know, like I don't really know what I'm talking about.
That's really interesting, like finding your allies. I think it's an interesting topic as well. So I think people are becoming more aware of how they can ally for each other as well. Like, I've definitely noticed that at Esri UK, you know, a lot of the men, not just men, you know, females as well, are very much more of an ally culture, supporting members of staff. So and that kind of links on to, I guess, mentoring again, maybe. Like, Helen, is that something that you would like advise to people who are wanting to change their career? Again, would it be to like lean into that area, mentoring and networks and stuff like that?
Yeah, I would totally recommend looking at various mentorship schemes. I did a peer mentorship over the last year with the Women in Geospatial network and found it hugely helpful and a really positive experience, because apart from anything else, it gives you the opportunity to stop and think about what you want to be doing and where you want to be going, and to talk about that with somebody who's taking a real interest and can offer you a different perspective on things. So yeah, very, very much so.
Fantastic. And interested in Women in Geospatial, right? Like, this is what's brought us here today. So it's yeah, fantastic that they've got resources like that we can all use. If you've not got a huge GIS team at your organization, you know, there are these external networks set up. Kristen, I'm interested, is this something you mentioned really early on when we were talking about challenges, was that you know, women taking their own opportunities, leadership roles? Is this something that, you know, would you recommend this to people who are looking to change their career, develop it further?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the time you need to understand what is driving your management. Don't just show them a picture of the work you did last week for someone else. It's like going to a policeman and saying, hey, here's the guy I caught last week, when they're just desperately trying to find someone. They want you to know their problems. You need to look at your company's objectives, look at the strategies. And I was at an all-staff briefing and they were explaining the cuts, yet again, of course, local authorities. And the chief executive had done a presentation. And it was towards the end, they were asking for any more questions. And I just thought, stuff it, I'm going to say something. So I literally said, I could be saving you thousands of pounds by doing demographic targeting and marketing. Yet I'm spending all of my damn time chasing round after the person that's given our chief executive an uncopyrighted map to show to their staff. And I got seconded to the head of IT to write a strategy for the organisation. Okay, it didn't come off that time and it didn't come off the next time, but people sat up and listened, and it gave me other opportunities as well, because although they didn't put the strategy out, the head of IT suddenly realised what there was there. And again, later, I got a chance to speak to the head of finance, and all they want is money. And I basically sat down, and because he was meeting the staff, for some reason they'd given him the IT people for a bit during a changeover, and I said, do you realise that I'm only actually bringing in half of the money that I could be for the organisation? Bear in mind, my team had brought in over 7 million in grants the previous year. That's why I got to meet him. So I said, there's a reason people like Tesco's employ people like me, and it's because we can actually work out who will pay for what when you're trying to sell them council services. And although I had to leave, they now have a GIS officer who is in a targeted marketing group at the local authority. And I think you'll agree that that's a rare thing. You just need to tell them how you're going to help them, not how you can help yourself, not how you help someone else. Know what they actually want to get achieved. That's the only way you can do it. But as soon as they think that you've got an answer to one of their problems, they'll sit and listen. It can be an email, it can be a conversation in the lift. Just say those sentences.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think that definitely is a testament to the themes that I'm hearing quite a lot, which is that stand up, like speak up, be part of the conversation, you know, advocate for yourself, but also advocate for what you do. Like, I think it's really fantastic. So I'm going to give you guys a break for a second and take a look at Slido. So, you know, Slido is what our attendees are participating in today and answering a series of questions that are coming up. Just taking a second to look at those. So then again, we can see that trend about feeling insecure about their own abilities. So, you know, that's definitely something that we've all discussed today, and so that we've experienced, you know, being unsure of choices. I think that's definitely something we'll look at in this next part of the questioning. I think there is a lot of choices to make, you know, irrespective if you're a male or female, plan to have children or not. You know, there is a lot of balance between, you know, work and life. So it'd be an interesting topic for us to dive into. And then management and leadership roles. Okay, brilliant. So feel free, there are questions that you can fill in as well for attendees. Like, please, we're going to spend 20 minutes at the end going through some of these questions that you've got. So feel free to address them to any one of the panelists as well, or open out to the entire panel. Okay, so we've looked at your career so far. We're going to talk about where you guys are at today. So work-life balance. It is a balance for a reason. I think sometimes it goes one and other direction. So how do you guys balance not just your personal life, which is hugely important, but also being a professional and still continuing to develop your career? So, you know, is that something that you potentially look at through maybe flexible working? I don't know, Helen, is that something that you've had as you've taken on your own, you've created your own business? So
yeah, I mean, I'm I feel very fortunate to be able to be completely flexible in my work these days. But of course that comes, it comes with responsibilities as well. So I feel really lucky that I can work the hours that I choose. But of course, you know, I am also responsible to, you know, provide the work for my clients. And if the phone rings, I will usually answer it, you know, if I'm working or not working. So it's a continual balance. I think, as for most of us, it's work in progress. But I, you know, feel, yeah, luckier than many to be able to set that, you know, if you work extremely long hours, you know, 1 week or 2 weeks, you might be able to take some more time off over the following weeks, just to have that flexibility in your life, or, you know, to take time off in school holidays as you know, as you want. But it is a balancing act, and yeah, it's, I don't think it's ever perfect.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Obviously, is, you know, kind of you own your business, so your time is yours to spend, isn't it? So it's a little bit, I guess, the benefits also terrifying, I imagine, at times as well.
Yeah, the buck stops here.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that, Helen. And, you know, Sarah, obviously I work with you, so where you are part-time, but also, you know, one of the leaders in our organization. So how do you manage the part-time aspect and based on the role that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, so I work a 3-day week, so it is, you know, really quite part-time. I absolutely love it, but like you were saying, Helen, it's hard, and there are compromises that I have to make on a daily basis, both in work and being a parent. It's just hard. You know, you sometimes, I think it's easy to think that I'm having my cake and eating it, getting both of them, but I'm not sure I look at it like that some days. You know, to make it work, I have to be, you know, frighteningly organised. At any one point, I am holding like the management of my personal life, my children's personal life, their school lives, my role at work, and probably half of my husband's life. And all of these balls are in the air, and I've, you know, got some crazy job to keep juggling them. And so for me, I have vast lists, and I have really strict prioritization. And at work is that organisation and prioritization, which are completely key to being able to work part-time. I've had to learn some really hard lessons around not being precious about missing out at work. You know, there'll be a meeting which is happening one afternoon, but I'm not at work, and so I've had to delegate that to someone in my team. I want to be part of that. That is an opportunity for me to show what I'm capable of doing, and yet I can't be there. So I have to be strict, and I have to just say no and accept that that's just one of those things that happened. I think the key piece of advice, and the main thing that I've learned about being part-time, is about surrounding yourself with really great people. And as a manager, it's been about growing this incredible team that I can trust and I can delegate to without a second thought. But this takes time. You know, it takes a long time to establish that. And I've absolutely had periods of my life, you know, weeks or months, where I've suddenly drowned in workload. My part-time hours have been thrown out of the window. And then as a result, I've not picked up my children, and I've forgotten something really important in my personal life. You know, like I say, it's not without compromise. Things do go wrong. You just have to keep that organisation absolutely tip-top all the time.
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry, I suddenly couldn't unmute myself then. But no, that was a really good point, you know, around part-time and full-time. It is, again, leaning into what Helen was saying about it being a balance, and trying to find that. Really, again, amazing point about trusting your team and delegating as well. Like, I know I felt that even going on holiday last week. I was like, just making sure that there was people there, and given those opportunities. I think, as you know, for myself, I've only just started taking on, well, I say just, the last couple of years, been managing graduates which come into the business, and I very much am trying to lead how I've been, you know, the leaders that I see, which is delegation is scary, but you know, it's also great to give these people these opportunities and stretch them and get them to develop and help support them. So yeah.
I mean, I think being part-time has actually really helped me become a better manager and a better leader, because, you know, I really appreciate that my success is all about the success of my team. And, you know, I really do have to think about giving the people in my team's autonomy and just giving them that sort of quiet level of support to allow them to flourish. So I think it's been a good thing for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Almost like trying to shifting your focus. It's fantastic. No, thank you for that, Sarah. Obviously, we're all doing this right now, as you can probably tell from all our backgrounds, but working from home, you know, obviously Shaz, this is something you do. So is there anything around that, around managing your work-life balance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot happier being at home, because obviously I have more time with my kids and stuff, but I've known a lot of people at work that just don't like it, and sometimes they'll call you because they just want to hear someone breathing, like they feel quite lonely. But I totally feel, you know, the same way as Sarah. I think, Sarah, for me, like maybe missing meetings isn't as much of a problem now because, you know, everyone has Skype and Zoom, like, and because my role is working from home, I've kind of been okay with that side of it. I think what I struggled with was missing out on networking. So like going for meals or lunches or, you know, like drinks after work and not getting to know the teams outside of work, you know, and they're kind of getting really close and you kind of feel a bit left out. I think I missed that side of it, but I do think that, like, for me, having a good work-life balance is, I'm so much more productive because I'm just generally happier, because I'm not wasting like hours in a car. You know, I can do the school pick up and drop off and then still work. So yeah, for me, it's been great. Sarah, you're on mute.
Fantastic, Shaz. It's interesting you say that. I recently, well, am I? Hello? Oh, I lost internet. I think I just lost internet for a second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, that's really interesting you said that, Shaz, because like it's something even now, like I think this is when you get into your mid-career, I guess you're starting to make those decisions, right? Like, and it's really scary. I think on the Slido, like that fear of making a decision. Like I recently moved from the head office to our Edinburgh office. Not that I've yet to go in the Edinburgh office because of COVID, but like, it is scary. It's always going to be scary making a decision. I think that, but you do it for what's right, isn't it? It's a balancing act. Like, okay, well, I'm going to be able to go walk up off a seat at lunchtime. That's enough for me. But yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Really great points there. And I think, you know, obviously there's the office space scenario. I'm office based typically, and it's great because there is a community there, and more so reflective of, you know, this, it's more diverse, especially as we've had as the UK quite a large recruitment process with our graduate scheme. But, you know, so it does have that sense of community there, which I think is missing a little bit right now. But it's interesting to see how we're generating a virtual community in a time of COVID. I don't know if that's something that you've noticed, Shaz, like with being home based, like there's more going on virtually now. Like,
well, we even have virtual drinks now just to keep everyone connected, which obviously doesn't happen normally. But we do it with our teams now just to like make sure that everybody's okay and we can see each other and stuff like that. It's a lot better.
Yeah. And again, that kind of dives into that inclusivity, isn't it? Like one day we all will be back at the office, but being mindful of those who aren't at the office just because they're not there, they're not still part of the team, and like finding ways to engage with that, I think is really important. That's really cool. Thank you, Shaz. And I think, you know, Kristen, is there anything you'd like to add? Because I know you were previously office based.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went full circle because when I was a consultant to local authorities in the late 90s, I was working from home and I went stir crazy. The only person I saw was the little kitten from next door, working a village, apart from one memorable week when they were filming Casualty in the village. So there were these people walking past with hideous deforming injuries and having a cup of tea. So, but other than that, just nothing, no one, and I hated it. And that's why I moved to local authorities and went in-house. And I loved having my team, having my desk, going in every day, being part of that community, but you don't always get to choose. I slowly developed more and more disabilities. And although I'd hated working from home before, I had I was forced to take a step back and say, I cannot do this anymore. So I went from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, and only working 3 mornings in the office. But having the internet completely changed it. Having Messenger to be able to chat with the people at work, being able to send photographs backwards and forwards, made it so much easier working from home. It was a completely different experience. Although I have now had to give up work because a lot of the time I'm not able to do things, it has meant, though, that I am still able to do GIS. And yes, these virtual communities are fantastic. If you find yourself retired in your mid-40s on your pension, you don't want to just sit there and think, I really enjoyed my job, I'm never going to do it again. So I've done things like mapping out the carnival routes for their new plans for the village. I've got involved with a political group only recently, and I'm teaching some data scientists in the volunteer group GIS, and it's been great watching them catch the bug. They'd never heard of it before. And a lot of these other ways that you can do these things at home that, yeah, just would not have been conceivable back when I started GIS. So don't be scared to have to cut back. Sometimes you might actually find you enjoy it.
Yeah, that's so many interesting points there, Kristen. Like, you know, talking, you know, about transition back to the office. Like, we don't, you know, I can't wait to get back to the office now, but you know, that idea that you find the place that works for you, you know, obviously is your health kind of work and could be adapted to that, and being able to work from home and finding the happy medium for you. So, and again, working in the community, helping with GIS afterwards. Sounds really interesting. Sounds like some great projects to be involved in.
I get loads of people shaking my hand at the moment because we declared a new public right of way, and it was absolutely hilarious because they didn't actually expect to have someone come up with all these historic aerial photography maps showing that there had been a public right of way. So they put me on first to argue with the barrister. And it was when the barrister was trying to grill me and ask if I did have proper court witness experience. And I turned around and said, no, but I did help write the British Standard, that I think he knew he was beaten. So there's so many ways you can help out.
Oh, fantastic.
But yeah, people walking around, they see me on my big mobility scooter and say, oh, thank you for keeping the footpaths open. And it's very rewarding, even just doing small things like that.
Amazing. Oh, thank you, Kristen. So we're gonna look at right now. So obviously, like, you guys are all in different areas of leadership. But I think from my perspective, as I've started to develop more in my career, there's a pull between technical and management. I just wanted to explore that, kind of like what skill sets and like how to manage that, or how you guys have managed, navigated that. So, you know, each of you coming from a technical background, would you say there's been a change in your career to focus on tech and management? I don't know, Helen, is this something that you've experienced obviously now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really common for many people. I think as you progress through your career, I think, you know, you take on management roles, and that becomes an expected part of, you know, of progression. And for me, I reached a certain point where I really stopped and questioned if that was what I wanted to do, because I found I was spending the majority of my time, you know, managing people, managing projects and writing reports. And I thought that's not really what I want, where I want to be focused. So that was a big part of my decision, was that, you know, I love doing GIS. I really get a buzz out of the work I do, and I wanted to be doing that day in, day out. And yeah, that was a push. But I think it is very hard to find roles where you've got both the seniority and you're focusing on the technical aspect. I think they do exist, but I think then they're harder to find.
Yeah, yeah, but possible as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. But I think you have to seek out, and I think I think it's worth reiterating that point about thinking about what you enjoy and playing to your strengths, because I think those two things are aligned, and it's worth stopping to think about what they are, you know, for you.
Absolutely. So I think, you know, the focus on tech, like you said, you kind of refocus on that whole area. Shaz, is that something, you know, you've come from a technical background and now you're in marketing, like, is that something that you lean into, like having that technical background?
I think actually for me, having a technical background was like the reason I've managed to progress so much, because it's, once you understand technology, it's really easy then to like translate that, I think, into like a, you know, what's the business value, and if you can do that in marketing, I think that's a good strength, whereas sometimes it's hard to convey the value of something if you don't understand the actual technology. So for me, I think having a technology background and not being scared of trying technology or learning it was definitely helpful. But you know, it's the same as you, Helen. I got to the point where I had to do less technology and manage a team, and I think I kind of struggled with that. That wasn't a skill set that, you know, you learn, you kind of learn it on the job. I don't think I was particularly good at it, to be honest. I preferred doing the, you know, the work with technology and with customers, and less around like with you know, managing a team. So, but there are careers, like, you know, I still managed to progress and get a role that was something that I wanted to do that didn't involve managing a lot of people. Like, I'm quite happy to mentor and help them, but not have the responsibility, I guess, for them.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's different. Like for me, yeah, I prefer doing the actual work.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Shaz. Like, I'm product manager, like product's probably the key thing. I manage the product, but no, I'm not the people manager. So although I get to work with people, mentor, you know, and, you know, get mentored myself, I'm not necessarily responsible for a huge team. So yeah, I know what you mean. I get to do the stuff that I really enjoy. And you know, I think it's interesting. I think that I've only had a small amount of experience with managing people, you know, only a couple of years. And I've noticed that there's different tactics that I would employ for different types of people. So, you know, not necessarily men or women, but potentially, you know, different introverts versus extroverts and so on and so forth. Is that something, you know, Kristen, with your experience, you've managed huge teams and, you know, and built teams as well. Is that something that you've noticed?
You need to understand that managing technical people is often very different to managing non-technical people. I think it was summed up to me once in a quote, was if you're managing a group of technical people and they stop complaining to you, be very worried, because it means they no longer think you can solve their problems. And that's very true. Most other groups of people, they don't have the same need to point out every problem that technical people do. And if you're the manager, they expect you to sort of help them with a strategy. So if they've come to you with a problem, they want you to help them solve it. They're not just having a moan. There's a reason for them saying this. And you need to get to know your people individually, and don't manage too many people individually. Set up a hierarchy so that you can know people individually, because that's the only way you can have a really good technical argument. We actually got told that we had to move our meetings to another floor because we were disturbing people with our arguments with our meetings. But it was great. I managed to get it so I had 8 direct reports, and I set up 3 hours every Thursday afternoon. The first 2 hours was for 2 one-to-ones, and the third hour was for any pressing issues, that anyone could come and see me. So they didn't feel pressured to see me about everything in their one-to-one, and they didn't feel the need to grab me the very few hours I was in the office. They knew there was a weekly time when they could grab me if it wasn't a house on fire issue. And a lot of people appreciate knowing that they've got this chance to come and see you with these problems. and particularly the quieter people. So they're not interrupting you, they're not pushing to grab your their share of your time. They've got the time, it's in the calendar, they know when it is, and there's also a time every week when they know that they can come and see you if they can't wait until their next meeting.
Yeah,
it's all about structure.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I mean, there is, hopefully, well, there's differences between technical and non-technical, but there's also differences within technical or non-technical people as well, isn't it? It's almost the thing that stood out to me there was like, get to know your people, like get to know how they, how they like to be managed, try and adapt your style to help them be successful in what they're doing. So some really great points there, Kristen. I'm just a little bit conscious of the time. Just before we finish up for the questions, we go on to the Q&A. Sarah, you and I have had discussions, obviously, again, to everybody's attending, we do work in the same company, and we've discussed these at length before now, but something that you've mentioned to me before, which I think it's important here is, you've got management skills, you've got technical skills, but then there's also this third set, right, which is the soft skills, like they can help with career progression and development. Is there anything you'd like to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, and we've discussed, haven't we, Sarah? And I feel like it's a drum I'm constantly banging on. I think it's very easy to underestimate how important these soft skills are. I mean, early part of career, when we're looking for graduates on our graduate program, if people have proven in their CV that they have got the ability to learn through their sort of academic, through their school years and university, then we know we can teach them GIS, we can teach them the ArcGIS platform, but what is much harder is teaching them some of those softer skills. And I've noticed that as I, have progressed in my career, that sometimes it's very easy to ignore them, but it's important not to. And you go on these courses which might be looking at time management, or they might be looking at, just some of these softer things, communication, networking, or whatever they might be. And a lot of the time it just feels like common sense. However, it's a point for you to sort of check in and make sure you actually are applying those things which are such common sense. And it's a point for you to reflect on what you're doing and how you're going about it. Otherwise, I think it's very easy to get stuck in a particular way of working. And again, I think that just taking some time out to read an article, to watch some virtual training, or to go on a course, whatever it might be, is just really important to keep those soft skills up to date and make you consciously aware of how you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, really good point, because it's easy, it's the harder task, I would find myself. I don't know if you guys would see that. Like, I can always measure my technical because I'll be like, oh, I can do this now, or I can measure my management because I've got more people being really doing really well. But when it comes to the soft skills, I'm like, oh no. Like asking for feedback and getting that back, leaning into your again, going back to the idea of networks, like really great and exceptionally difficult way to challenge yourself. I think well, that's kind of all the time we have for the questions today in terms of the panel. So I am going to actually suggest we go to questions from the audience, but I just want to say a massive thank you. That was really informative. For somebody, I was very excited to be asked to moderate this because I feel like I needed to hear some of this stuff. So for myself, I thank you for that. It was really, really useful and insightful. So if we can go to the Q&A and let's have a little look at what's come in. For those of you who are on as attendees as well, we are going to answer as many of these as we can. If we can't get to all of them, we'll look at how we can share these out. But yeah, we're going to try and get to as many as we can in the next 20 minutes. So let's take a look at the first one. So been a GIS officer for a while now, and I feel the only way up is management, but I want to try and stay technical. What would you recommend?
Can I jump in and say, if you work for a public sector organisation, why not consider regrading? I was lucky enough when I went from 5 days a week to 4 to coincide it with a regrading. So I managed to be doing 80% of this work, but I only lost £8 a week month income. So it's only £2 a week worse off. it's sometimes going through the corporate processes and saying, hang on a minute, my responsibility that I've acquired is not reflected in my job description. What is the process for going and getting this recognised through the official processes? Sometimes that can be a good way to start, even if you then decide to move on. Once you're on a higher salary, it makes it easier to get a higher salary.
Oh, that's a great point. That's a great point. Has anyone got anything they would like to add about, you know, almost remaining technical on that side? Because Charles, you made a point before when you were talking about, I mean, although you're not like in the depths of the technology, like out, you know, out on site configuring it as a consultant, you know, you are still very much like in a role where you're developing your expertise using the technology and explaining the value of it without having to take on that management perspective. How have you dealt with that, or how would you, you know, what advice would you give for that?
Yeah, no, I did give it a go. So I did try the management role. At the time, I thought that was the only way to move up, to be honest. So I was like kind of pushing for it, and then got to it and realized that it wasn't really what I thought it was going to be, and decided to try and move away from it. But I did learn a lot from doing it. Like, I do recommend like trying it, like you know, and because you can still stay technical, because you know your team might need still, you know, your support technically. So like personally, I would try it anyway, because you never know, you might like it. Like, I've found that I didn't like it and then use that as a stepping stone though still. So I didn't do it for long, but it was enough to have the experience to say, right, I can move on now. That's how I did it.
Yeah, almost give it a go. I mean, I know from my experience, I didn't necessarily want to become a manager. I just realized we didn't have any female graduate line managers. So it was like pestering like Sarah, who's on the panel today, can I become a manager? So, you know, and actually I found it really rewarding. There's a lot of things I've learned from being a manager. It doesn't necessarily mean I want to develop a career in management to hire, you know, huge teams, but there's definitely a skill set there that's helped me in my product management role as well. So Shaz, just what you were saying, like learn, and again what we've been talking about, like learning what you're good at, learning what you like lean into that a little bit. Like, so hopefully we've answered that a little bit. I think it's difficult with just the amount of context we've got, but if we go to the next one, so as leaders, have you experienced being ignored because you were women amongst men at a meeting? What advice would you give to be taken seriously? Sarah, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I can take this. I mean, it's just shocking, isn't it, to even, like, the fact that that question is even being asked is just quite horrifying. And fortunately, no, I've never experienced being ignored because I'm a woman. I think, what advice would I give to be taken seriously? I think if I was in a situation like that, I would probably, you know, go back to what I was saying before, find an ally, you know, find someone in that room who you can make a connection with, who can back you up and can help you in that environment. I think you need to speak up if you ever are in that situation. I think sometimes it's probably not happening, but, you know, consciously, it's an unconscious thing that's happening within that room. I think probably the worst thing you can do is remain silent.
Yeah.
Can I jump in quickly as well? And just to say, don't forget about other methods of communication as well. So, you know, we're all saying speak up at meetings, and I think it's really important to do that. But if you're finding it difficult to do so, don't be afraid of putting your thoughts down in an email and sharing them with whoever you feel is appropriate within the team, because you might find your voice in another, you know, a bit through another route as well.
Yeah.
If the worst comes to the worst, fake a sneezing fit, then you'll get their attention. Then you can carry on speaking.
Oh, thank you for that. Thanks. So have you got a tip to give the audience in terms of what made a huge difference to your career progression? Shaz, do you want to see you like thinking
I kind of jumped around a bit, if I'm honest. I think it took me a while to figure out what I really wanted to do, where I really wanted to work. Like, to the point that I realized I wanted to spend my time working for a company that was helping make a difference to the world rather than just making money. And I think once I'd got to the place where I was happy, it made a huge difference for me, because I was I was just generally trying harder. I was more interested. I was more focused. And I wanted to progress, whereas in the other places I was like doing it just because it was a job, if I'm honest. I wasn't as passionate as I was until I realized I'd found something, you know, especially like GIS. I found that like I was so interested with all the case studies and the stories of how people were using the technology that I just wanted to do it all day long. And that was the only way that I progressed, because I was just so interested in it.
Amazing, Shaz. So again, like finding what you're interested, find out what you're interested in. Like, yeah, fantastic. Helen, have you got anything to add to that? Because you made a huge career change as well. So
yeah, I think similarly to Shaz, really, it's finding out what you want to do. For me, the biggest progression has been deciding that I want to run my own company. That was, you know, a big jump, but it stemmed from wanting to do what I love doing, in the same way that Shaz was saying that. So, and also maybe stop and think about what you think of as career progression. Is it necessarily the salary and the pay rise and the management roles, or is it something else as well? And just try and think as widely as you can about what's important to you and what your core values are, I think.
yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thanks, Helen. Okay, so this is an interesting one, I think, you know, for a number of people on the panel that we've described it today. So I've tried to drop a day and found that work expectations are still the same as full-time. What would you say is the right balance?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to pick this up, given I only work a 3-day week. I think that's a tough one. I think actually within a 4-day week, you are getting very close to the same level of output as a full-time week, because I personally have found I've become a lot more efficient working less hours, and I get much less distracted. I think you need to work at it. I think you need to work with the organisation and set that expectation and set really hard boundaries. For me, sometimes I take away any flex in my schedule, set hard boundaries, and once a norm has been established, then you can go back to flexing them, because you have that norm and that's what people expect. And sometimes you're just not going to be able to deliver as much, and people are just going to have to learn the hard way. Yeah, it's a really tough one. But what you can't do is fulfill their expectations and set an unrealistic expectation of what 4 days or 3 days actually means, and of what can be delivered in those 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Can I say, the thing about GIS is if you don't like it if you're not a conscientious person. You have to be the sort of person that likes that sort of precision to make you any good at it. Bear in mind, there is a big difference between saying, I can't do all this work, and going to your line manager and saying, I have too much work, could you prioritize some of this for me? She may know more about the organisation's objectives than you do, and what was important 2 weeks ago may now be outdated. I think you need to start to just understand what your capacity is, and then understand better what the priorities are, what you should be spending your time on. And it's a much easier question to go to someone and say, what's the priority here, than it is to say, what can I drop?
Yeah, no, some great advice there. So, you know, setting yourself boundaries, like, you know, and then having to understanding your workload, working to understand how that can be delegated. So some great advice there. Hopefully that's helped. So next one is, I find it hard to ask for a pay rise, and I think there is still a gender pay gap. What is your experience?
I can totally have a
go for it. Yeah.
Because I was in a really similar position. I felt like I was doing the same work as somebody else, but not really getting paid the same, or not getting treated the same, but the responsibilities were the same. so the way I dealt with it, and I don't know if this is the right way, but I applied for other roles. I just went out to see, well, what kind of role can I get? What salary will they pay me? How far can I go? And I kind of, went through the interview process, and, when I'd got like an offer that was doing the same sort of job or that I was doing already, but for a higher pay, then that gave me something to go back to my manager and HR and say, actually, this is exactly what I'm doing now, but someone's willing to pay me more to do it. And it was, for me, that was the only way that it kind of worked, because I tried doing the thing where you go online and you see what your salary is compared to other people doing the same job, and that hadn't worked. But then going out and actually getting a job and getting an offer and then coming back and saying, well, actually this company think that I could do this job and it's worth paying me this much, that kind of helped me, I think, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think there's with the gender pay gap as well. That's really interesting, Shaz. Like going out and finding out what your skills are worth on the market. So, with gender pay gap, depending on the size of your organisation, I believe it's 200 and more. I need to check the stats, but employees, they should publish the gender pay gap report. The government asks them to publish that. So, I definitely recommend, if you are part of an organisation, a lot, mid to large organisation, that information should be available to you. I think it's, it's difficult to have those conversations, especially when you feel it is based on gender. But I think, this is where the culture shift, people are a lot more aware now that it's unfair to pay men and women different, it's illegal, not just unfair, it's completely illegal. But, if this is an experience that you're having, I think I have questioned it before the gender pay gap. I had a conversation with my manager because I was interested, coming from the fact that there was more men than women at the organisation. So it depends on your relationship with your manager as well. I would say I've got a great relationship with mine. It was a very open discussion. They went out and found the information. That luckily everything was fine, but it was something I felt comfortable enough to have that conversation. So it might be worth having, if you are comfortable having that. Does anybody else want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, and we need to be careful that we're talking about the same thing, because the gender pay gap is slightly different from pay equality, and there is a gender pay gap because of the number of men in the higher echelons of a lot of IT companies, even if there is pay equality between similar roles all the way through organisations. I know in the past, I was massively shocked when, like 10 years ago, my male counterpart doing exactly the same role said to me when we went into our review, so are you asking for a pay rise? And I was like, would you ask for a pay rise? Well, I've never done that before. And actually, I, again, similar situation to you, Sarah, asked all the right questions, spoke to my manager, spoke to various people in my organisation. I had no need to worry. There was absolute pay equality between our roles. I wasn't asking, but that didn't mean I wasn't getting. And I, as a manager, would be absolutely, that would be one of the key criteria I'd be looking at. Looking at people across my team and ensuring that people are paid based on the individual, not based on any other factor.
Yeah, that's a really good point. About the gender equality and gender pay gap. Yeah, absolutely. That's just, there's quite a few things out there that are resources. The other thing I would have a look at is there are a lot of people who talk about asking for a pay rise. It's a tough thing to do. Like, and there is a lot. I definitely go out and have a look at how other people are doing it. I lean on my my actual group of peers as well at the organisation. What type of conversations are they having with their managers? So if you are part of a larger network, asking those questions, if they've ever asked for pay rises, how was that dealt with, what's the most effective way? So lots of different ways to, hopefully that's helped or help give some ideas. I don't know. So the next one is, how important is the right job title in GIS? Much variation: GIS analyst, spatial analyst, geospatial, but responsibilities unclear, so wages vary hugely.
It's just a trend thing. It keeps changing, and it's because it's a new discipline still that a lot of organisations have only got one person, or they're just suddenly getting a second person. You need to understand what the responsibilities are more than what the title is.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, Weston. I mean,
and I think that's again leaning into what you want to do as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. I think there was a bit of a delay. But
Right.
yeah, sorry. Do you want to?
I was just going to say, I totally agree. You know, I have created my own titles in the past. You know, it could really be anything. It's about actually the responsibility that you have and the activities that you're getting up to. If I'm, you know, reviewing a CV or anything like that, I'm not necessarily looking at what they're called, but I'm looking at the bit underneath, finding out what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, almost selling yourself through your responsibilities a little bit if you are looking out to change your career. That's brilliant. Thank you. So as a one-man GIS band, I'm often pulled from pillar to post. How do you go about prioritising and inevitably saying no even to senior managers and directors? Helen, is this something
Yeah, I'm very familiar, very familiar with that question, and probably, to be honest, more so in my previous role as GIS manager at an environmental consultancy, because we worked across the, you know, all of the disciplines in the consultancy, and we would often have people, you know, saying this is urgent, we need this tomorrow or this week, whichever. And I think two things really helped. One is being really clear with communication. So, you know, if somebody came to us and said, I need this tomorrow, understanding why they needed it tomorrow, and if, you know, why there wasn't a reason that did they know about the tomorrow last week, for example. So you know, being clear that actually that trying to get involved as early as possible in projects so that you understood their timelines and things didn't surprise you. I think that's a really important thing. And I think if there is constantly too much work, then I think looking at the resources, because if you're always feeling pulled from pillar to post, then and you're not able to fulfill the workload that you have, then I think yeah, the resourcing levels aren't right. And I think being able to communicate that to your managers or seniors is an important part of it as well. So I think communication and as, you know, being as organised as possible with your time and estimating how long each task will take is probably all part of that picture.
Some great advice, Helen. Thank you. So we've just got 2 more minutes. I'm going to try and get through as many of these as possible. So we might have to be a little bit quick. So to the panelists, what are your thoughts on the pressure or expectations on women to work part-time, which is not reflected similarly for men? I can't say that word.
I mean,
That's a hard question because.
Go for it, Shaz.
No, I was just going to say, because I don't really feel like I've had the pressure. I feel like, if anything, I'm the one that's been having to push to get that. But say, I don't know if you've had it different.
I totally agree, and that's what I was going to say. I wanted part-time. That was, you know, I didn't have an expectation. I just knew I wanted to be at home. I wanted a work-life balance, which enabled me to spend more time with my family.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, I think we're seeing, you know, more men request part-time hours now as well. So I think it is starting to move across the genders. It's not just women asking for it.
Actually, my brother took his organisation, I won't name, it's a very large bank, to court with the unions, because he was the lesser earner, so he asked for a term time contract when his daughter was old enough to go to school, and they turned him down when they'd allowed the women to do it. So yeah, he took them to court for sex discrimination and won. So it more often is the person's decision to go part-time, but I'm wondering if the person here is thinking they're being pressured at home to go part-time to look after the children, not the men.
Yeah, no, so that's an interesting one. You know, I think it's probably a whole topic on its own. I think for us to try and address that in a couple of minutes is probably not going to do that justice. I am just going to ask this one last question because it's addressed directly to you, Helen. So how did you get into GIS with environmental consultancy?
Yeah, I'll try and be very quick. So I did a geography degree. I then went and worked in IT, starting in IT support and working up. So in information systems management, it was fine, but it wasn't really my thing. And then I sort of had a moment where I discovered, you know, or really thought about GIS and thought, I can put these two things together. And I went back and did a master's in GIS. And from there, I went straight from that to work for the Environmental Consultancy.
Amazing. Thanks. That was so quick. I just said that was so impressive. No, that was fantastic. I think, you know, there's some other questions on there. We will have a little look to see if there's anything we can do to publicize that. In regards to the product management one, I would just say have a look at the roles that are out there. Find something. Product management is fantastic. You can absolutely be you can continue to be technical as well. I've done like presentations at dev summits about JavaScript and stuff like that. So my biggest piece of advice for product management: find a product you're passionate about, because otherwise it can become quite tedious. But if you're passionate about that product, you'll do whatever it takes to get that product to market. So I think just go and have a look, see what there is available. I definitely recommend it as a career. It's fantastic. So with that, thank you again to all the panelists. It's been amazing. Great to have this conversation. I'm actually going to ask our host, Olive, if you want to just wrap up the session.
Yes, I'll try the camera again. Yes. Apologies for the problem with internet earlier. But I was really in awe about all the contribution that's been done today by the panelists. Thank you so much. I've picked up lots of little tips, but I think I just wanted to wrap up saying that I think the networking, having the support network is really important, and the mentoring is super important. We all have imposter syndrome, so we all need a bit of help if we need to. And I think this is where Women in Geospatial can help. So on that note, please come and join us. And thanks again for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you all.